We have started the recording, and today what we are going to do is follow the plan that uh, that we had discussed during our last session. So what we are going to do is next plan is data exfiltration, and then we will set up a persistence as red teaming method, and then in last 30 minutes or 20 minutes we will play with S3 bucket. So what we had covered during our last session is this thing. So yesterday we have compromised the key. Basically, we have seen what kind of methods that attacker will use to compromise the AWS credential. Second, we saw the lateral movement in VPC, where we understand what is VPC, what kind of component does VPC has, and how to check those components from GUI and from CLI. We also installed AWS CLI tool. We configure the credentials into the AWS CLI tools. And then when we completed the lateral movement, we found the secret at the end of our session, which was in our third virtual machine, which is third EC2 instance, which was in our VPC 2. So today what we are going to do is we will be continuing this exercise with data exfiltration. Okay, so let me jump back now to our VM, and we will start with the data exfiltration first. Let me give you the information about where we had exactly left last time. Okay, let me power on the VM. This is the diagram which we had used during our yesterday's session. Let me see about the VM. Okay, meanwhile, let me also open our AWS account, which we were using. This is the AWS GUI console. These are the three EC2 instances that we have. I hope now the VM is up and running. Okay. Kali and Kali. Okay, so we are into our VM, and now what I will do is, as part of our exercise yesterday, we had reached till this EC2 instance from the lateral movement. Okay, I will connect to all of these three EC2 instances again, and from there we will start the data exfiltration, and we will see if there is anything else we can see as part of compromising secret or any specific files. So let me open a 3 tab now, because what we are going to do is we will be opening these 3 EC2 instances from different tab. Okay, so that we will see each one of them at the same time. Okay, I think now this looks better. So our first VM was this, and this is the IP. So now, in order to open all of these 3 EC2 instances at the same time, what I'm going to do is I will open a first instance on all of these 3 tabs, and then I'm going to pivot. So this window will have our first instance open, which is public instance. This window, we will open our private instance in VPC 1, which is this. And the third window, we are going to open this EC2 instance, okay, which is private instance again. So let me see. Okay, we have to go to Red Teaming directory because this is where we have our SSH private key for these instances. Okay, so let me paste this. Enter. I'm going to open this instance again from here. Paste and then same I'm going to do here. CD, go to Red Teaming where we have our keys. So now this all of the three tabs has the same instance open. Okay. Okay. So this is IP address of our first public instance. This is the private IP, but it also has a public IP address of first instance. Second instance has this IP address, and the third instance. Sorry. This is only first instance. This is also first instance. So from here, we are going to open a second instance because we do not have direct access to these two instances, right? So this is how we are going to do the pivoting. Let me take the IP address and detail for this second instance. So in a second window, we will have the second instance open. This is our second instance. Control L, and let me now open second instance here as well, because from here we are going to open our third instance. Okay. So that we can see all of the three instances from three different tabs. Okay, so this is what we have. Okay, now as you can see here, this is the private IP address of our first instance. This is the private IP address of our second instance. Okay, and from the third tab, this is the private IP address of our third instance. So now here, where we had left yesterday is when we check here, there was some secret file were available, like super secret. So consider that this is the secret information or some information we have compromised, which is not supposed to be exposed or which is not supposed to go out of this environment. Okay, so consider that this is our secret file that we have achieved to get the access from our last exercise. Okay, finding the secret. Now, talking about secret, what else we can find from the secret perspective? So basically, what we can do, if it is a EC2 instance and if it is, of course, AWS environment, we can also query IMDS database credentials from here. Because as part of EC2 instance, there is IMDS service, which is instance metadata service, is service from AWS. And what does this service do is basically load the credential of instances or specific workload, and those credential we can see it from the IMDS services. So the original purpose of this service is to have the access between multiple resources of AWS itself. So for example, if any services within AWS, S3 or Lambda or anything else, that has to communicate to EC2 or EC2 has to communicate to any other services. So these credentials will be used in order to make the communication happen, right? And this is where these credentials are stored, which is called IMDS. Now there is a version 2 also. So there was a version 1 previously, which was less secure. So basically, the IMDS service is loads the credential from one default location. So if we have the access to EC2 instance, we can query one IP address, which is 169.254.169.254. Okay, like we generally query our loopback IP address like 127.0.0.1. So this is our loopback IP address, right? So same AWS is utilizing one IP address, which is 169.254.169.254. So this IP address is used for the IMDS services, instance metadata services. And what is this instance metadata? Is of course it is having the credential, and those credentials will be used from the EC2 instance when it is communicating to any certain services. So of course, we will not be able to ping this IP address, but let's assume that maybe there is a this server, web server on our public instance, and the web server is not configured properly, okay, which is having maybe SSRF flaw, which is exposing the server side detail to the end client, which should not happen. So with the help of SSRF attack, we can find out this credential, okay. And at the same time, if we have the access to the service itself, I mean, the EC2 instance itself, we can query the same information from the EC2 instance itself. So the command is, this is the URL, okay? We can run the curl command here. Since we don't have the browser in this CLI navigation, okay? So we can use curl. So let me just open this URL. 1 minute, I'm copying this URL from my notepad, and I want to show you on a here. So this is how this URL will look like. So this is the IP address 169.254.169.254, and then latest is next directory. Then there will be metadata, then IAM, which is identity and access management, and then there will be security credential. So this is what directory you are going to browse from the EC2 instance CLI. Okay, let's jump back here, and then curl is a utility to query the website data from CLI. Okay, so when you make a query for this specific URL, you will see what is behind this URL. Okay, so there is one more role profile is basically connected to this specific EC2 instance. And let me do up arrow key and then copy this role name, and then, sorry, paste, copy paste. Curl. Okay, this is the command, and press enter. See, when you run this command, you have seen that for this specific profile or for this specific role, there are certain credentials are available there. Okay, so as an attacker, you can also compromise this credential, save it to your notepad, and maybe you can use this credential to log into AWS account if it has enough permission, you know. So basically, this is how you have to again hunt for the credential. So now, coming back to the point of data exfiltration, when we have the credential or when we have some sensitive data, how do we exfiltrate that data from the red teaming perspective? So we are going to see the Netcat utility. There are many ways. You can use the Netcat, you can use the S3 bucket, you know, maybe to upload this content to open S3 bucket and then download it from there. So there are many ways. You can also use the inbuilt utility, okay, to make the utilization of data, actually to exfiltrate the data. So, but in this scenario, we are going to see Netcat utility. So let me open this. I will just quickly introduce you about the Netcat, and then we are going to play with the commands of Netcat. So basically, what Netcat is. See, Netcat, what does it do is basically just reads, writes the data across your network. Okay, so whatever the raw data is in your network, it just moves across the network. So basically, there are two different mode in Netcat. Okay, one is a Netcat client mode, and there is a one more mode which is Netcat listen mode. In a client mode, see, generally, how does this Netcat works? We will run a Netcat on EC2 instance to, to open a connection, and then from attacker machine, we can connect to that open port and then take the data, or, you know, for whatever purpose we have run that Netcat, we can utilize that specific purpose. So Netcat in a client mode will initiate the connection to a specific port. Okay, so this is the simple definition for the client mode. Next is basically the listen mode. In listen mode, uh, the Netcat basically waits for connection on a specific port. So definitely we are going to see this information in practical, but this is just a simple explanation. Okay, so we will be setting up a client and listening. So if it is a, let's say, victim computer, we may set up a Netcat listener, and from the attacker computer, we will set up a client there. So client will make a connection to listener, and then whatever data we have given access to listener, those data will be transferred to the client machine, which is attacker's machine, okay, or computer, for example. And what are the Netcat use cases? Is Netcat can be used for a data transfer, which is what we are going to demonstrate for the red teaming from the red teaming perspective. It can be also used for port scanning, making connection to open port, set up a backdoor, set up a relay. So this is what we are going to see as part of our demonstration. So now let's jump to our Kali Linux. And then what are we going to do is set up a netcat between these three instances. Okay, looks like I have lost the access to these instances. Let me just reconnect them back. So let me just reconnect it back. And once it is back, we will be setting up a Netcat listener client between these three EC2 instances. And then we will be exfiltrating our data outside this environment. I think it's taking time. Looks like it is frozen. No problem. Let's give it some time. And meanwhile, this connection is alive, which is fine. This is what we need. Okay, while it is just taking some time, I am going to explain you from the diagram how we are going to set up a Netcat listener and client. So this is our diagram. So we have all of the three machines compromised. So our task is to exfiltrate the data from this private EC2 instance, which is in VPC2. We are going to exfiltrate this data to this public instance. So maybe from this public instance, we can download it to our computer, or we can upload it to S3 bucket, or wherever, FTP, or if we have HTTP server, we can upload wherever we want. Okay, so currently we are going to exfiltrate this data from this instance via pivoting to this instance, because as you know, we don't have direct access to this instance. Okay, so our prompt is back. Let me connect back to instance 1, instance 2, so that we will be able to perform the Netcat demo. This is our instance 1, and from instance 1, I'm going to connect to instance 2. Okay. Okay, so this is our instance number 2. This is our instance number 1. Perfect. So what are we going to do? Let me open a diagram again. First of all, I'm just going to show you small demo how to transfer data from one EC2 instance to another EC2 instance. Okay, with the help of Netcat. So this is our third instance. The command will be netcat, which is nc. And since this instance also doesn't has access to internet, maybe the netcat utility is not updated here. So we are going to run some netcat command. So as we discuss, we are going to set up a listener here, okay, on this computer or on this EC2 instance. And from here, we are going to set up a client. So right now, for this demonstration purpose, consider that EC2, so this EC2 instance, which is number 3, is our victim, and this is the attacker machine. Okay. So on a victim computer, we are going to set up a listener with the command netcat hyphen listen verbosely on this port. I am going to listen on port 2222. Okay, this is the port that I'm going to listen. You can type any port that you want, and then with the help of that port, you need to just connect from the attacker computer. So this is the netcat listener, and let me press enter. As you can see, now this victim computer is listening, okay, on some port, which was not previously the case. So from the attacker's computer, what I am going to do is uh, make a connection to this IP address and on this port number, so that there will be a communication between these two computers. So netcat is a command, and then I need to specify the target IP address, which is 10.20. Okay, 1.129. And then the port will be this, because this victim is listening on 2222 port. Okay. So this is the port number. Okay, let me just press enter. So this keeps alive and press enter. Now, as you can see, there is nothing here, but I got the connection to this. I mean, I am connected to this instance. As you can see, that connection received on this IP, and this is their source port. So now if I type, let's say ls, we will not see anything, but simply it will reflect the command in our third instance. So here, if we type who am I, for example, and press enter, and if you go to third instance, you will see it here. So right now, this is just a basic demo to show you that this can be also used as a chat mechanism, right? So now, but our target is to transfer this file from victim computer to attacker's computer. Let me close this connection with Control C. So when I close, it got closed automatically here. So now, in order to transfer a file, okay, let's do one thing. I want to transfer one file, which is super secret file. And let me see if this file is here or no. No, perfect. So this super secret file, what is here in that file? Let me see, super secret. Okay, it just says you have exfiltrated the data successfully. So this file I want to exfiltrate to our attacker's computer. Now we are going to use the same command, netcat, and then now this is what we are going to do. We are actually going to redirect the file, which is super secret file.txt. So we are going to redirect this file to this session. So anybody who connect to this session will receive the content from this file. Okay. So press enter. Now I am listening on this port and from this IP. So if somebody makes a connection to this, to my IP, they will receive the content of this file. So let me make a connection. And now in order to receive this file, I need to also put the I also need to put this syntax here, and then I am going to define the file name, which could be anything. It doesn't has to be the same file name. You can keep it same if you want. So let me set up a name. I will just say new file 01.txt. Okay, and then press enter. So now we will not see anything that has happened here. Also, we will not see any connection, any file or data that has been transferred, but we will only see this information. So now let me cancel this connection again. This is terminated. Now, if I press type ls and press enter, you will see that the new file 01, which I just defined a new name, is appearing here. And if you look at this file, you will see the data that was part of this super secret file. So this is how we can exfiltrate the data from one computer to another computer as part of red teaming. Okay, so this is just a basic example that I have shown you. There is one more thing that we can do. Instead of taking data from computer 3 to computer 2 or EC2 instance 2, what we are going to do, from this instance, we are directly going to exfiltrate the data to our first instance. But that is not ideally possible because this instance is only able to communicate to instance 2, and instance 2 is only able to communicate to instance 1 and 3. And at the same time, this first instance is not able to communicate to this instance. So what we are going to do is we are going to set up a relay connection. Okay, this relay connection will be used to take the data from our third instance to second instance, and this relay will basically help us to take the data to our first instance. Okay, so now let me show you the small drawing which will give you better understanding how this relay connection will look like. So as I show you, we have 3 instances. Okay, here it is. Okay, we have 3 instances. So let's assume that this is our public instance. The first instance is our public instance. The second instance is our private instance in VPC 1. And then the third instance is private instance in VPC 2. So from this instance, we want to take all of the data to this public instance. In previous scenario, what we understand, we can take the data to this instance to this instance. So how are we going to achieve now this instance 3 to instance 1 communication directly is with the help of Netcat relay feature. Okay, so we are going to set up a relay on second instance. From the first instance, we are going to make a connection to second instance. And then from second instance, we are going to make a connection to third instance via relay. And the third instance will be on a listening mode. Okay, so this instance will be a listener. This instance will be a listener plus client, and then this instance will be a client instance. Okay, so in order to set up a relay connection, this is how the relay connection will look like on a second computer. So on a first instance, that the command that we ran, and on second instance also but only change is here. Now there is a third instance. So to make this instance as a relay, this is the command that we are going to run. Okay, of course, our IP address will change, our port numbers is going to change. So basically, we are going to make a back pipe, actually, the name pipe, and then that name pipe will help us to transfer the traffic from here to here. Okay, for instance 1 to instance 3, sorry, 3 to 1. And this is the command, and this is how we do it. So let's do it in CLI. So first, I am going to go to instance number 3. And here what we are going to do is create a new file, ls, and just check what are the files available. I am going to create new file, touch, let's say instance 03 secrets.txt. Okay, there is nothing, but let me add something in this file. Secret data, and save the file, and let me check the content of this file. So this file we are going to transfer to instance 1 directly, okay, via Netcat relay utility. So now, as we did previously, we are going to set up a listener on the third computer, which is this command netcat hyphen listen, hyphen L is for listens verbosely on the port. Let's try this time some different port, let's say 2020. This is the port that I'm going to use. And then I need to redirect the file which I want to send it to the end computer. So this is the file that I want to send it across with the Netcat utility. So this is the listener that we have set up. Now here, what we are going to do is we are going to set up a backpipe. Okay, so as we saw here, basically there is some explanation about this. Netcat relay is basically what it says. is known as FIFO, is also known as name pipe. Okay, so we are going to create a name pipe on instance number 2, which is this. And then from here, we are just going to set up a client. So in order to create a name pipe, there is a command called mknode, make node, and then we can just give any name. Let's say tunnel. I mean, this is the name that I'm going to give. And then P, this is the command, press enter. So I need to make sure that I use this tunnel keyword in our relay. So now to set up a relay, I am going to use Netcat and then listen first on port, listen verbosely. So I am going to listen on, let's say, this port. Okay, and then let me just finish this command. First tunnel, backpipe, pipe, and then again I'm going to set up a client, which is Netcat connection to 10.20.1.129 and on a port 2020, and I'm going to type the tunnel here also. So what it is doing basically, it is making a client connection towards this listener. Okay, and at the same time it is also listening on this computer, and this relay, what it is doing is anything that is coming from here, it will transfer data to here on this listener. So once we set up this relay, press enter. This is the command only that we are going to do on second instance. On the first instance, now we are going to set up a client which is going to listen to, which is going to make a connection to this listener, but on port 222. Okay, sorry, 2222. So now let me type the command netcat, and then the target IP address is 172.31.69.168, and then the port number will be 2222. Okay, and now what I'm going to do, I want to redirect the file that I'm going to get, and then we can give any name. Let's say secret received from PC03. Okay, .txt. This is the name that we are going to give, and then press enter. So as you press enter, you will see that there is one connection, and here also the one connection got initiated. But as you know that the data, when it is transferring or even if it is finished, we will not be able to see that. So we need to close this connection. Type ls, press enter, and see that there is new file. And if I type the cat secret received from PC3, so this is our secret data, which is also present in our PC3 cat instance. So this is the data we have successfully exfiltrated from this instance to the first public instance, even when we don't have the direct network connectivity. So this is how the red teaming works, guys. Okay, you need to find the way how to transfer data. If there is no way, you need to make a pivoting, you need to set up a relays. There are so many methods. The netcat is just one of them. Okay, so maybe you can use the internal tools which are inbuilt in Windows or Linux operating system. Or if there is any scope that you can install your own tools, you can also use those tools. Okay, so this was about the data transfer. Next thing that I'm going to show is how to set up a backdoor users. So let me look at the agenda. What we have covered is we have just set up a data. We have just exfiltrated data. Okay, there is one more thing from the data exfiltration perspective that we are going to see with S3 bucket. That will be during S3 topic. So for now, we are just going to jump to the setting up persistence mechanism. So how we can set up a persistence mechanism? It depends on the situation. So currently the situation that we are into is we have the instance access of Ubuntu. This is Ubuntu instance from the AWS cloud. And at the same time, we have the access to this cloud account itself. Okay. Considering that we have compromised it from our previous maybe previous engagement, or let's assume that customer has given us the initial credential. Okay. So let me see our profile, that what we had added yesterday. Okay, I have removed this credential for the demonstration purpose. We will add this credential again later. I'm going to show you that again. So first thing, in order to set up a persistence, what we can do, we can create an additional user, so that even if this user or this keys that we have access to got revoked, we can still log into this instance with the user that we have created. Okay, that is from the instance perspective. And what about from the AWS account perspective? What we can do from AWS account perspective is, we had got this identity and access management credential, which is programmatic credential. So what we can do, we know that maybe the credential that we have compromised, those can get revoked in future. So we will create one more credential into this root account. So even if that credential got revoked, we still have the access to AWS account. So these are the two methods that we are going to see. So first thing that we are going to see is configuring the additional user on compromise instance. So let's assume that we are on this second instance where we had connected via SSH private key. But this time we are going to create a user so that we can use that user next time to connect back to this instance, even if these SSH private keys are revoked. So in Linux, to create a user, we can just run this command sudo adduser, and then the username we can keep, let's say, backdoor for the demonstration purpose. And the password that I am going to set is test star star test star star. Okay, these are all information. I'm going to keep the default. Oh, sorry, I think it did not create it. Is this information correct? Okay, I think it took that information. So next thing, that we need to add this backdoor user to the root user group, okay, sudoers group, because we need to make sure that we also have the same level of credential or maximum level of credential when we log back into this account with this username. So to add this user into sudoer group, is command is sudo usermod -ag, and then you are going to say sudo and then the backdoor user, and then press enter. So this user is now added to sudo group. And let me just set up a password again for this user one more time. Copy paste, press enter. Okay, user ID is already added. So sudo pass. This is the command to set up a password for passwd. Okay, sorry, command is wrong. Passwd is the command to set up a password for any user in Linux. So this is the password that I have set up successfully. Next thing that we are going to do, we need to make sure that authenticated users are also allowed, okay, via password authentication, not only via the private or public keys. So what are we going to do? We are going to edit the file, which is, I'm going to do this with vi /etc/ssh and sshd_config. This is the file that we have to edit, and the keyword that we are looking for is password authentication. Okay, this is the keyword that we are looking for. So this specific syntax, what we need to do is, currently any user that is password authenticated will not be allowed to access the account. We need to make this yes instead of no. So I Okay, and then wait. With this, press I, change this keyword to yes, and save the file. What is this? Want to continue? Quit. I don't know what happened. Warning, changing a random file. Okay. Why I'm not able to change it? Yes, and then save the changes. Press enter to type command to continue. Okay, 1 minute. I am facing some issues with this thing. Let me try with nano. I don't know why. Couldn't be the issue. Nano is unwritable. Okay. Oh, sorry. Control X. Save now. I'm going to use sudo. Okay, now I have the access. Fine. So I had to use the sudo. That was the problem. And let me go to the syntax that we were looking for. This is the syntax that we need to change. This is the line, Control S and then Control X. Okay, so now this file is saved. So last thing that we just need to restart the SSH service and try to log in this account, this specific IP address via username password. So let me do sudo service SSH restart. It's restarted, and now I will do one thing. I will log in from this instance. Okay, I think this is again hang. Okay, let's do one thing. Let me exit out from this instance. So I am back into the public instance. So now in order to log in this instance, what I need to do is SSH backdoor is a username, and then the IP address is 172.31.69.168. This is the IP address that I'm going to use. Now it is asking me the password, which is test star star. Okay, as you can see, now we have created a backdoor user. So even if we lost this SSH key that we have access for, I think this is also timed out. Let me connect to this instance also later. Okay. So even if we lost this SSH access key, we still have the persistent mechanism, which is backdoor user. Okay, so previously we had logged in with Ubuntu user, as you can see the difference here, and now we have logged in with backdoor user. Okay, so this is one of the method to set up a persistence in Linux operating system. There is one more thing. Now, what you can do when you have the access to AWS account, okay, you can set up another security keys, access key and security key to have a persistence mechanism, so that even if the previous keys are deleted, we can log in back to that AWS account with the new keys that we had configured. So let me get the initial credential for this account to log in via AWS CLI. I'm going to again quickly demonstrate you. And after that, we are going to create a persistence mechanism for this AWS account access. Let me create a new user. Demo02. So consider that this is what we have compromised from our previous engagement. This is demo to user, set up a security credential, create new access key for the programmatic access, and next, and then create access key. So this is the access key. With the help of this access key, I'm going to configure the profile. AWS configure, press enter. I'm going to paste the key, copy the secret access key, paste it, and then the default region that we are going to keep is US East 1. US East 1, and then the output format none. Okay, so coming back to the point, now we have to set up a persistence mechanism from the AWS account perspective. So how are we going to achieve that? Since we have the initial compromise credential, we can just try to see what kind of access we have. Here we can just check AWS STS get caller identity is the command to check your existing access and existing detail. So basically you are part of this demo. This credential is part of demo 02 user. This is your account ID and this is your user ID. Okay. And you can also just try to enumerate a lot of things like we did during our yesterday's session. We enumerated the EC2 instances, VPC, S3 bucket, those kind of things, right? You can still do like this, AWS S3 LS, just to see what kind of buckets are, part of this account. So there are few buckets. Okay. But our idea here is now to set up a new credential for our AWS access so that we will have some persistence mechanism, even if our previous credential got revoked. So for that, what are we going to do is we are going to create a new access key for new user. Okay. So the command will be AWS Identity and Access Management, IAM, create user. Let me remove this, create user, and then username. We can give any username like test username. Sorry, we don't have to do create user. What we have to do, we have to first try creating the access key directly. So for that, we are going to use AWS IAM create access key, and the username will be, let's say, test 02, and press enter. Okay, as you can see that there is error. We cannot create access key for this user test 02. So what we can do, we can create an access key for our existing user, which is demo 02 user. Okay, so that way, if the first access key got revoked, we still have the second access key. So let me type the demo 02 user, which is available there, and press enter. So now, as you can see, this is our access key and secret access key for us to come back and log into this account again in future. So let me copy this and just save it into the notepad so we can use it later if required. And now if we go back to our console, we just had created one access key, but now if you look it from the console perspective, you will see the two access key. One was created 3 minutes ago and one just created right now, which was from the CLI. Okay. So this is how you can create a access key. Now the question is, what if this user itself got removed by administrator? Because maybe they learn that this user is compromised, they will remove the user completely. So in order to create a new user, you can also do that actually from the CLI. So in order to tackle that problem, we can create a new user, and from that user, we can create a new credential, CLI credential. Let me delete this first credential, and I'm just quickly going to show you one more demo for creating new user and creating the credential for that new user. Okay, we need to first deactivate this, and then we need to paste this and then delete it. Okay, so coming back to the Kali box, Control L, So now since we have deleted that key, we cannot use it from here, right? Because it's deleted. Don't save. We don't need that here either. So next thing that we are going to do is create a new user and set up a credential for that user. Okay. So I'm just going to copy paste the command that I have now. So this is the command to create new user, AWS IAM create user, and then the username is my username. Okay, that we are going to do. Press enter, and the user is created. Next, once the user is created, you are going to attach the policy to that user. Okay, because you got the credential from the root account, you have the full access, and that's why you are able to create the user. So it will not be the case always. Okay, so since we have compromised the root account already, we are going to create one more full admin access account. So now to give this user full permission, this is the command that we're going to run. So we are going to attach a user policy to this my user, and then the policy name would be administrator access. Okay, so if you want to see this policy, administrator access, from the GUI, you can check it from the policy, click on policy, paste it here, and see this policy. Okay, administrative access. And what does this policy do is basically allowing you to take any actions across all the resources. So let me press enter and attach this policy to this user. Next, I am going to create an access key for this user, which is called my user. So this is the command to create a new access key for this user. So before I create, I want to just show you quickly. This is where is my user? Okay, this is my user, which we have created newly. Go to security credential and see there are 0 access key. The moment you press enter here, it will create a new access key. At the same time, it will allow you to copy it to your notepad. So let me copy this to our notepad. And now if we go back and we just refresh this or go back to user, go to my user, security credential. And as you can see that there is one newly added access key available. So this is how we set up a additional user or set up a persistence in AWS console. So what we have seen so far is creating user into instance, which is Linux instance, and also creating a redundant user or persistence user into the AWS console. So these are the things that we actually have to take care when doing red teaming, so that you have the access to the user. So next thing, which will be the last part of our today's workshop, will be to play with S3. Why to play with S3? I just want to give you some information about S3, just to give you some hints how it looks like, how you can utilize it, for the purpose of red teaming or even for the normal utilization purpose. But now we are going to exfiltrate the data that we had compromised to the S3 bucket. Okay, so basically what S3 is, it is just you can say simple storage system. It is like a storage system, nothing but, and you can store the files, all type of files there, and then there is no limit. It has some features that you can use. So it's like a cloud storage. Okay, and it has a multiple feature which we are going to see. It has a lot of security mechanism as well, which we will be checking now. So ideally, what happens with S3 is S3 bucket get compromised due to misconfiguration mainly. Okay, so if the policies are not set up properly, or if the bucket were kept open publicly from the beginning, so any corporate data that you put into the bucket, any attacker outside, he can exploit your public bucket. Okay, and he can exfiltrate data or copy all your data to their computer. And then maybe they can sell it and do whatever they want. So basically, with S3 bucket, we have to be very careful. So in the demo, what we are going to do is this data that we had compromised. Okay, let's assume that this is secret received from PC3, that now we need to send it to our S3 bucket. Consider that we have as an attacker one AWS account, and from that account we are going to set up a new bucket. Okay, so let me configure the S3 bucket. I will keep it publicly open, and then because this bucket we will use to exfiltrate this data from this EC2 instance to our S3 bucket. Okay, even though this is same account, you can do the same step for the multiple AWS account. Because we don't have additional account, we are only doing this same thing into our account. But this step can be performed in a different account as well, so that it will look like, you are actually transferring data from one place to somewhere outside, which is not under, the customer's control, or not under actual people control who are, owning the account. So next thing, I'm going to create a bucket and I will give it a name, open bucket for red teaming. You need to make sure that this name is unique under AWS. So if this name is not unique, you will not be able to create the bucket. Next thing, what I'm going to do, I'm purposefully going to keep this bucket public so that you will see what impact it can do. So if your bucket is public and it doesn't has properly configured permissions, attackers can actually upload content to your bucket, which may, cost money. I mean, if there is usage which is exceeding your free tier, of course, AWS is going to charge you. At the same time, attacker can use your S3 bucket as their pivoting point. So let's say I am an attacker, I compromise this computer or this instance, and this is somebody's else, bucket which is publicly open. Okay, I can use this bucket to host my content to that bucket from this premises, and from there I will download. Okay, so this is how I can also utilize the bucket. So this is the bucket name that we have configured. Let me make this bucket. This is bucket level permission that I'm going to make it as a public. Edit the permission. I'm going to give the permission for everybody. This is ideally a misconfiguration that is done, but nobody should do this purposefully unless and until you really want to make this bucket as a public. Because now if you configure bucket like this, you are going to see what's going to happen next. So I am also going to configure the bucket policy so that the object that I place under this bucket policy, I don't have to make them public one by one. So let me go to property, copy this bucket name, and I have one policy which I'm going to paste it here, which is this policy. So you configure this policy when you don't have to make objects in your bucket public one by one. Okay, this is the policy, bucket policy, which will take impact on all of the object. And this is very dangerous policy. Actually, it's allowing access everything in S3 and for this specific bucket. So you should never do this purposefully, but we are doing it for the sake of demonstration only. So next thing is, let me upload some object here. Let me take it here, and 1 minute, upload some file, add the file. I'm going to add this file here, upload. Okay, I have selected the file and it is being uploaded right now. Okay, so the file is uploaded, which is AWS Red Teaming. Let me close this. Let me go back to our bucket again from here. Okay, buckets. This is open bucket for red teaming. And if you go to the objects, where are our object? Okay, this is the one object that we have uploaded. Now, if we have to access this object, this is the URL. And now the thing is that since the bucket is public, anybody can access this URL or anybody can access this file. So let me show you. I'm going to open a new tab and just paste it here to show you the demo. As you can see that this is the URL format for S3 bucket. This is our bucket name. This is S3 and then AmazonAWS.com. And this is the object in our bucket. So this is the object name, AWS Activity. So as you can see, anybody is able to query this object. Okay. And if I want to see what all content is available in the bucket, I will simply remove this object and I will try to browse the bucket itself and see if there is anything. Okay. So ideally, we should not see the details like this here. Okay. This AWS Red Teaming. So that means there is one object. As an attacker, if I don't know the object name and if I only know the bucket name, I can simply query that in a browser or from the CLI and see what all are the files available there. And then from there, I will try to access files one by one. Okay, so now next what I am going to do, since this bucket is publicly open, I am going to jump to the CLI here. And let's assume that we are going to have the dummy profile. I'm going to configure one more profile, which is, see, as part of this root user or as a part of admin access credential, I can actually see the buckets from here. Okay, because we have this credential here. Let me show you configured for us. And with the help of this credential, I am able to list all the content from the bucket. So now consider that this is attacker's computer. Okay, and your bucket is publicly open and he doesn't has any credential. And this is the actually idea, because your bucket is publicly open, it is allowing access to anybody. They don't need the credential. Okay, so I'm going to delete this credential. So what I will do, I will just do AWS configure again. And then I will just configure some dummy credential, which is not valid. So now if you look at the credential, these are just some dummy credential for the default profile. And now if I go and run AWS S3LS, I will not see anything because the credentials are not valid right now. So as an attacker, or if I see that there is some bucket which is, which is publicly available, I can simply do one thing. This compromise content, let me go to this first instance again. There is one file, right, which I have compromised. So this is the file, secret received from PC03. So let me check if we have AWS CLI installed here. Okay, there is AWS CLI installed. So what I will do now, coming back to our diagram, I am into this instance right now. And this is the bucket somebody open, or as an attacker, I have opened it. And now I can utilize this bucket to exfiltrate this data and then download it from somewhere else. So let's do that in a practical. How are we going to do? Let's check the bucket name, copy the bucket name, copy. And I'm going to do AWS S3LS, and then I'm going to specifically type the bucket name and see if there is anything that I can see. Okay, see, even though I don't have the valid credential, okay, this credential is not having access to list the content. I am still able to list the content of that bucket. Why? Because that bucket is public. And because of that misconfiguration, as an attacker, what I will do, I will upload this secret file to this bucket and then I will download it from somewhere else. Okay. So let's do that in action. So the command will be AWS S3 and I need to copy this file. First of all, let me see the full path of this file. Okay. AWS S3 copy is command and copy what? Copy. I'm going to copy this file, which is in Ubuntu directory and this. Okay. Here we cannot use the tab. So we have to type the full name. So this is the command AWS S3 copy this source file to where S3 : and then this is our open bucket. Copy, paste. I want to copy this file to this bucket. And now let me show you again. If you look it from somewhere else where you don't have access, you will just see that there is one file available. And from the console, if we look, this is admin access. Of course, we have the admin access. We will see only one file here. But now as an attacker, when I run this command, let's see what happens. See, the file got uploaded to Open S3 bucket online. And next, now if I just refresh, I will see one more file. So this could be any sensitive information. This could be Excel files, this could be PDF file, or this could be the text file, and then that sensitive information, if it is got compromised, the impact will be higher. And now if we have to see this file from the attacker perspective, now as an attacker, I uploaded and now I just need to see how many files does this has. So when I did the refresh, there is one more file available. So if I copy this file now, okay, here. So it's not necessary to just navigate it from GUI. I can simply navigate it from the CLI as well and then download this file. Okay, press enter and see that there is a secret data into this file. So this is about the data exfiltration from S3 perspective also. So what we have seen today is we can do the data exfiltration in many ways. Coming back to our drawing, what we did is via help of Netcat relay, we exfiltrated data from this private instance to this public instance. And then with the help of S3 bucket, we took the advantage of publicly configured bucket. I mean, the bucket which is by mistakenly configured to have the public access. And we utilize this bucket as our pivoting point to download the data from this public S3, the public instance that we had previously compromised. So this is how we can perform the red teaming on a basic level. I try to keep it as a simple. I try to keep it as a manual thing mostly because this is how you are going to understand the concept of AWS, pen testing, and red teaming. So now, before we conclude, I will just delete these resources because I don't need those resources right now. Empty the bucket. I'm going to type Nantly. So meanwhile, just in case if you have any doubt, you can ask me. Okay, I have deleted this and I'm going to delete this bucket as well. And then I am also going to delete the credentials that I had configured, which we don't need it. Okay, I will do that later. But as part of our AWS red teaming, let me summarize. Yesterday, what we had done is we had done the lateral movement into the VPC where we don't have the direct access, and we had also compromised the credential. So today, what we did is we exfiltrated the data of secret data, which we actually compromised yesterday. And we also set up a persistence mechanism. And we also saw the S3, how S3 can be used in this red teaming activity. Okay, so that's all about our red teaming exercise or red teaming workshop. I hope you guys like it, and I hope to receive your feedback if there is anything. If you have any question, feel free to ask me now or text me later. I will be happy to answer your queries. So with that being said, see you guys. Take care. It was a really nice session, and thank you very much for your time. See you guys.